You might have noticed a distinct lack of what's the best last year. Well, I can't fix that with this video, but I can fix the lack of which is the best. Welcome to Which is the Best? Which is the best CHUG Sandstorm that I own, which I think is all two of them. But first, your likes! Please give and maybe subscribe. It's Legacy Sandstorm versus Generation Sandstorm, and these two are excelling on two very different things. Legacy Sandstorm is doing infinitely better at being the classic interpretation of the character, while the Generation Sandstorm is doing an even better job being the version of the character that it wants to be, and it also just looks a million times cooler. Yeah, unfortunately, the Legacy figure made the head toy accurate while the body is show accurate, and while I think that was the correct decision in terms of aesthetics, as I always say, give me faceplates or give me death, but there is no denying that by doing that, they've made the accuracy where this thing's advantage lies lesser, where no such alteration is being made to the Generation's IDW version, and that guy didn't need the leg up because he already looks like, well, that, when compared to that. I'm not saying that this is terrible or ugly looking, but there is very clearly a cool one, and one who very clearly looks like an 80s nerd who brought a gigantic camping backpack with a radar dish on top like he thinks it will help him locate the bitches. The head isn't a deal breaker on accuracy, but this needed absolutely every edge it could get when it's getting put up against the significantly superior retool of the Generation Springer mold, one of the most legendary figures of the past 15 years. And let me tell you, the quality control also isn't helping this thing. Being fair, they packed a ton of plastic in here. This weighs a ton for its size. I mean, it damn well better, it's a liter the size of a Voyager class, but the legs are way too tight. Legitimately, it takes force to move these. There are Titans with joints that wish they were this robust. But you know what? That's not any kind of problem in comparison to this. The chest does not peg in at all, ever. In any way, shape, or form. If you dare to move the arms, his top will drop like it's Mardi Gras and he just got a fat string of beads. It is so irritating and hilariously to my testing, universal. For the first time ever, I'm thankful for the open-faced boxes. Which, just on that subject, this is what mine looked like when it came from Amazon. Great work, guys. It looks like you treated my package with all the care and respect due to a person who, the next time I mail something, will totally not be an envelope full of human shit. But I've since seen this thing at Target 3 times in fact, and thanks to the open-faced boxes, I was able to reach in and pull on the arms, finding that while they're rubber banded down so it springs closed, all 3 copies have the chest hold on with all of the determination of a Wi-Fi signal getting provided by Verizon that you are probably picking up with that pathetic radar dish. Guys, how did you fuck this up? How do you design a figure and then go, oh shit, the chest doesn't plug in at all? It is so irritating to move any part of this dude and have to fix the torso. I want to scream. If you realized it had this problem, delay the figure like the one day it would have taken you to thicken up the single peg that's supposed to hold the whole thing together. What would have been so hard about that? So this has accuracy to the classic interpretation of the character that is sabotaged by the head. Meanwhile, the Generations has accuracy to the version of the character that it wants to be, and it looks way cooler. So both lesser points that are on the same axis, so it's not like I can count it double against the Legacy, but man do I want to count it double against the Legacy. Camping backpack versus jetpack. Is it even a question? Dude is swole as fuck and is built like a hero. Ironic considering the comic he comes from, but just damn it is not fair between the two of them. I legitimately cannot put into words how much better this thing looks. I like squares, and even that is not saving this guy when he stood next to a figure more than a decade older. Going more into the heads, I do think both of these are kind of strange. The Generations figure is just kind of a gaunt dude with a big chin and craptacular light piping. The eyes are deader than core class, and there's no helping it. It would have really improved this to give him a faceplate so it looked less like a creeper in a helmet and more like a cool robot that the rest of the figure screams that it is, but I suppose it's accurate. Meanwhile, the newer Sandstorm's head is the G1's head since G1. There is something so dated about the way this head looks that even the other accurate figures don't suffer from. Like Optimus's head basically hasn't changed in 40 years, yet that looks so modern. But this knockoff Scrapper's head is just so square and boring, and it's got this weird orange plate on the top of its head that maybe they could have made look like a hat, which could have been cool, but they didn't. And it's not like it's part of the alt mode, so this is just a weird shape on his head, like some kind of Dorito-flavored Kappa. Moving straight onto the accessories, which doesn't factor into the rating, but I should talk about it nonetheless, because I'm sure that you all want to know about the new guy's stuff. The Generations figure had a gun, but I lost it. The Legacy figure, on the other hand, comes with a crap load of stuff. For starters, he has a pretty standard, boring-looking rifle. It is incredibly waffled, and it feels like it's missing some sauce. This just feels like a Combiner Wars gun, and that is not a good thing. He also comes with this fugly little pistol that looks like a mix between a microphone, a sex toy, and a Men in Black alien blaster. I don't like looking at it, especially since I swear it has a skin disease. Then he comes with this thing. It sure is a thing that makes the robot mode look so much worse, and the alt mode barely better. Then he comes with the Cage of Horrors, which I guess is supposed to get used like a flail in robot mode, and while I do appreciate the effort that went into this thing, I can't lie and say that it's anything other than an albatross around this figure's neck. This exists entirely so the engine in buggy mode can have a cage around it. So they made this thing that's of very limited use a lot of the time, and when you want to use it for the alt mode, it's got a parts form like 3 times, and if you want to use it for the helicopter mode, it's extremely in the way until you take it off altogether. It's a fun idea, but I find the implementation is more often in the way than enjoyable. So the accessories are an item that I lost that I don't care about, and a few items that I could lose and not care about, as well as a piece that I kind of wish I could lose, but if I did, I'd be harming the alt mode. Not that for that particular mode it would matter much. Despite the fact that the new figure is coming with so much, both of these guys are kind of doing badly. Posability is mostly going in the new guy's favor, however. On the Legacy one, the head has a very limited, very tight, very impossible to get your fingers at swivel, and a very limited up and down. Shoulders pull a 90 and slightly backwards butterfly. Elbows pull significantly more than a 90. Wrist swiv, and the slightest, barest sword-wielding wrists. Waist is extraordinarily limited. Hips are unimpeded forward and to the side, but basically no back. Slightly less than 90 knees, and feet with a pivot and a massive heel down. The Generations figure has an unholy levels of better head, with way more up, insane more down, and an easy-to-use unhindered swivel. And from there, it's kind of perpetually downhill. Shoulders pull slightly less than a 90, elbows pull slightly less than a 90. Wrist swivel and Narcissa wrists, so you can fake a much better set of sword-wielding wrists. Waist is not limited, hips are unimpeded forward and to the side, and much less impeded back, slightly more than 90 knees, and feet with a toe down and heel down. But no pivot, unless you count this thing in the wrong direction. Admittedly, this is actually a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I've always considered the Generation Springer mold to be badly articulated, but this new figure's head is such a pain in the ass. The legs are really unimpressive, and the limited waist are all areas the Generations one doesn't suffer. And where the Generations one is bad, it's just slightly less than the average, with the exception of the ankle tilts. I'd still give the points to the new guy, but there is no reason it should have been this close to a tie this much later on from a more expensive figure. Now we get to the part where it is a true, violent, horrific ass-kicking. This ain't even fair. The new figure's transformation sucks. It ain't fun to get this guy into helicopter mode. There are some satisfying clicks to be had during the process, but it is too tight, it is all too clashy, there is way too much of the Play-Doh factor, you do the leg wheels and you just kind of go, that can't seriously be it. You actually have to bend the rotor away from the figure to get it out, which feels weird as hell, and then splaying the rotor is the most terrifying thing I've ever done. For some reason, they decided this needed to be the tightest tolerance part of the whole figure. So in order to fan these out, you need to crank on this part so hard it flexes in the most concerning ways possible. There are enjoyable seconds of this transformation, like plugging the back part in that supports the rotor, but 9 times out of 10, if there is a way this thing can make this aspect shitty, it takes it. Meanwhile, the Generations figure has one of the most legendarily awesome transformations of all time. However, the helicopter isn't its strongest suit, and it's not without flaw. Getting the head into place is kind of a pain that can only be done at the exact right time, and going into chopper mode, you really aren't doing all that much. The bulk of the transformation to this mode just involves unfolding the arms, and I find this one to be just a little unsatisfying. There is no eureka, I'm done moment with this one, which for all its faults, the other one kind of has. And behold, a bar of orange-scented soap resembling a 90s telephone, and a space VTOL jet helicopter thing. I'll be fair and say that I actually think the Legacy figure is the more successful one in this mode. It holds together a bit better, and it's definitely more clear what this is at a first glance. However, the arms hanging out on the sides are not disguised at all, and the head pointing straight down is a little disconcerting, though you will never look under there. And once the rotor is set up, it spins pretty good, as does the rear one, and it rolls well too. The older figure can't roll at all, and its rotors are really only for show. It is definitely the cooler looking of the two, but the disguise, even without the arms being so apparent, is far less convincing. But then you hit the second transformation, and this is where it gets almost kind of gross how unfair this is. This is where the Generations figure absolutely takes off, getting far more complicated and interesting, with the transformation scheme using all of the parts in interesting and unique ways. The legs are hinging in half to form the sides of the alt mode, along with the shoulder pads. The forearms are becoming windows, the backpack is hinging down and becoming a roll cage, while the turbines are clamping around the sides to become a bitchin' set of power wheels. Meanwhile, the new figure is like going halfway back into robot mode, adding a section of parts forming, and just kind of ending on a wet fart, where the one good moment is the really weird way the head hides away. And the result is disgusting. This is one of the worst alt modes I've ever seen. Hasbro should almost be sued for deceptive marketing because they did a ton with their photography to hide just what this thing really looks like. This is absurd. This looks like a car that was chopped in half and welded back together with the bottom of the front half at the window line of the back half. This is one of the most incohesive alt modes I have ever seen. It looks like a bad fan mode. It is ugly and misshapen and diseased and begging for death. The only thing that this does well somehow is roll good, and given the undercarriage, you better hope whatever surface you run him on is flat. And then we pan over to the Generations figure and, oh fuck me dude, that's not cool. That's not fair. That's not fair to anyone. This is like putting a neckbeard asking the girl he likes out on a date, next to Jake Gyllenhaal who just replies, or we could hang. Just the most horrific case of you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about imaginable. This mode rocks like it's trying to shake Mount Olympus into a crumbling pile of gravel with just the pure power of sonic waves and metal. This looks like it's going to war. This looks like it's going to the junkyard after the horrible accident. So which is the best? The Generations one. It's not even close. The distance between the two is so profound they can't even see each other with a telescope. The Legacy figure has accuracy to the classic interpretation of the character in robot mode, and better posability. The Generations figure is actually more accurate to the version of the character it's trying to be, it looks better in general, both of its transformations are sincerely more fun and less frustrating, and while the helicopter modes between the two of them are relatively competitive, the buggy modes are the furthest thing from competitive. One is a showstopper, the other one stops the show because when it gets out on stage, everyone starts vomiting all over each other, and they all run screaming from the big top in terror. I have rarely seen an alt mode I hate more than the new one's Dune Buggy. I know it sucks to hear because the Generations figure is impossible to get now, but that is by far the more worth it one. As for the new figure, it's not the worst thing ever. Well, the car mode is the worst thing ever. But the robot mode is fine, even if the tolerances in the chest and the legs suck balls. And the transformation to a pretty good helicopter mode isn't devoid of positive qualities. I sincerely doubt you will like the buggy mode, but the figure as a whole isn't trash. You might like it, but I wouldn't stake my reputation on you liking it. And before we go, let's thank a patron. And this time it's Phantom Fellow with MP Sunstreaker. Oh my god, that came so fucking close to Armada Optimus Prime. Again. Wait, didn't I already do Dumb Jake? God, these are hard to keep straight in my head. Anyways, I can't believe more companies haven't taken a swing at this guy. He's one of the most unique G1 Autobots, and it can't be that hard to make a car former with a window chest and headlight feet. I've heard mixed things about the Masterpiece, but I do think it looks really good, and the alt mode is positively gorgeous. But sadly, I haven't had the chance to mess with one of these myself. Maybe one day I'll pick one up. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.